let's talk about technology for a second. So Wade, tell me from your standpoint, what is a must-have when it comes to technology, right? There's so much out there. What's going to pay the farmer back? What do you see?
I would say the no-brainer, obviously, would be AutoTrac and Section Control, because AutoTrac's going to save you fatigue by the end of the day. You're not going to have overlap. You're not going to have big skips out in the middle of a wide-open field. You're going to have, 30 or 20-inch rows all the way through. And then you think into section control. Your section control is the same way. You're not wasting seed at the end. You're not leaving big skips where weeds are going to grow up or where you're not going to have crop that's going to benefit any profit. And that would be the no-brainer answer for me.
Yeah, right. So section control, you're not over applying chemical when you're using it on the sprayer side.
Right.
Same thing on the seeding side, right? But every time we get into the conversation of technology, it always points towards planters, towards sprayers, because that's the big cost saving, right? We're not over applying chemical, we're not over applying our seed, the skips in the field with weed pressure, all that. But what I've been impressed with this year is the tech on the combines.
Right. That's this year they came out with the harvest automation as well as the ground speed automation. So I know that riding with a couple customers and then in the demo machine we had this year and last year both, you saw a huge difference in what felt comfortable to the driver on the ground speed side. You put a driver in the seat and you're running, just say 4.5 miles an hour. You turn ground speed automation on, you're anywhere from 5.5 to 6, and you're still getting the same productivity, if not more.
Right. Better cleaning because it's holding the machine fuller.
Right.
Taking in more grain, using all the capacity of the machine, right? So in the past where the guy just tells his combine operator, hey, hold this thing at 4.5 or 3.5. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it's not. But the machine's smarter than we are, and it knows when it's at full capacity. So, and the seed loss out of these machines has been unbelievable this year, right? My biggest pet peeve, and not that it makes me mad, but it's frustrating to drive by fields and see where it looks like it's been broadcast spread, right? And it's been a significant problem this year with soybeans. In particular, because some of our beans are so small in the pods, right?
Right.
But when you look at these things side by side, a machine that had harvest automation settings, which, you look at that field and it's just immaculately clean.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you even look at the harvest automation, field to field is going to be different, especially around here. You've got bottoms, you've got heels, nothing's going to cut the same. And so during the heat of harvest, nobody wants to get out and set their combine each time they change a field after 40 acres.
Yeah. I mean, who has time for that, right? I mean, I've noticed the difference. I helped a customer back in the fall get one of these machines set. And in the past, we've gone out and it would take a day, right? It'd take half a day at the least. You put in the standard settings.
Yeah.
You walk behind the machine, the grain's there. You're like, oh, I'm blowing it out the back. Let me change my blower, right? Let me change my fan speed. And then you still got grain on the back after a pass or two. And you're like, oh, well, maybe my sheaves are closed too tight. Let's open them things up. But the machine recognizes it.
Right.
Right. So, and it's pretty impressive how it works. I mean, Deere's had this technology. Combine Advisor was kind of a predecessor to this. The user interface wasn't that friendly. But this one is so simple, right? Mm-hmm. Like it monitors 3 things, right? Form material, grain loss, and seed breakage. That's the 3 things it monitors.
Yeah.
So, and it's as simple as setting a number in the display, right? It's 1, 2, 6.5,
Yeah.
And those numbers don't mean 6.5 bushel per acre on the ground, right? So you set your seed, your grain loss for, you put it down the middle, say you put it at 4.5. Mm-hmm. So the machine's using the sensors, the grain loss sensors on the back. It's sensing, okay, this is what's coming out the back, and it starts adjusting it if it's too high.
Right.
So,
and it's just crazy too. You set that, you're looking at the display. You may have to get out, just say once or twice, and just say a 45 minute to an hour span and double check what it's doing. But the old way, you'd break a sweat climbing that ladder 12 times in 30 minutes, man.
No doubt. And, I mean, think about what that did for your productivity, right? I mean, you constantly stomping the combine to make adjustments, do whatever you need to do. But when I can go out and set a combine in about 20 minutes with this technology and the customer's looking on the ground, you know, and like, hey, this is amazing. Never had this few grain on the ground.
Yep.
You know, it's pretty impressive. It really is. You know, those settings are so easy to use and adjust on the fly. You know, a lot of guys will say, well, why don't you set your grain loss at 0 and set your form material at 0 and let it do it? Well, you know, there are some limits, right? You know, so if you set it too low, it tries to fight itself. It's going to adjust back. It's going to find its happy medium and say, hey, here's what I can maintain for you. And so far, by the fields that I've looked at and walked behind, it's been as clean as it can be.
Right. And then you break down that harvest automation even more. You go back to the Combine Advisor era, you had reactive. So Combine was changing itself as crop was coming through. So in an irrigated field, you're under pivot, making really good crop. And then by the time you got out of it into your worst crop, it was too late for it to change. And so now with the harvest automation, you've got cameras on the front. It's looking at satellite views, and it's constantly it's predicting what it needs to have everything set at, so that you're not losing grain right there at the edge of that irrigated ground or the non-irrigated.
Yeah, one of the most fascinating things I find, right? All these machines are connected, right? So you and we see a bunch of data off these machines as they're running. You know, we can see where they're set, how much fuel they used. It's an unbelievable amount of data we can see. But that also goes to a Deere server. So if you have one of these machines that has harvest automation settings, when you pull into the field and you put it on corn and you go ahead and set all your settings, your external settings where they need to be, your chopper, all that stuff, it'll start looking in our region for what other combines are set at that are running corn. And if there's enough machines, they'll take the average of that, and that's going to be your base setting. That's what you're going to start with. Right. You know, and if in our region, if you're the first to go to the field with corn, then it's going to take a broader look, and it's going to look at all the United States. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So it's pretty amazing what we're doing with technology, and I know a lot of times we talk about technology. There's a lot of farmers that don't like that word. They think of sensors and DPFs and emissions and wires and more computers. You know, that's what they think of. But I think my new motto after this year is no grain left behind. Right. I could get behind that for sure. So that being said, what's your favorite part about the harvest automation in a whole on the combines? It changes through the field, right? So typically in years past, all we did on the first day was go out, set the machine. Farmer's happy with what's on the ground, what's in his grain tank. But now, they'll take off and go, for 3 weeks and never really check the settings. Might check behind the combine in a different field, but this thing changes on the fly. The demo mode, the demo combine we were running when we were in corn. I made 4 or 5 passes with it, and in that 4 or 5 passes, it changed 3 or 4 times just in a 50-yard, 60-yard span. Yep. From what it saw coming into the machine, whether it was crop density like we got in the valley or we got on a peak and the yield started dropping and raising. I mean, it changed those sheaves, jaffers, fan speed. It changed all of that just on the fly through the middle of the field. And that's something that no farmer ever does. Right. Yep. That's what I know. We had a lot of questions this year and last year, both with the demo floating around. Everybody was worried about bean dust. With the cameras, how's it going to do when the cameras get covered in dust? And I can see that, but at the same time, you got to think it's using satellite views that are updating, just say every couple times a week anyway. So you got satellite views, and then it's using the camera as the main source. So when you are in those dusty combines and you're cutting beans and you can't see out of the windshield because there's no wind blowing, it doesn't matter that the cameras can't see it. It falls back on satellite views, and you're just as good as on a bluebird windy day. Yeah, a lot of technology that will definitely pay the farmer back. It's highly recommended for anybody that's in the market for a combine at the moment. Yep.
Agreed.